All right, so in this video, we are going to cover live Boolean in Zbrush. So let's get into it. Got my Zbrush pulled up right here. Your Zbrush might look a little bit different. I have a custom UI, so don't worry about it if some of the buttons are in different locations, but I will be referring to the buttons as if they're in the original location. So that way, those who are following won't have trouble in where to find those buttons. All right, so this is my UI. To start, I'm just going to click on this tool here and I'm going to load in a Cube 3D. Click and drag, hold down Shift, whatever, to drag them out. Hit T, enable edit mode. I hate this red, so I'm going to change it to matte cap gray. All right, this is my cube. Before we can edit it, we have to make it into a polymesh 3D. So here, make polymesh 3D. Click, boom. Now we got a polymesh 3D cube. That means we can like sculpt on it and stuff. Looks super janky. Don't worry about it. So now, live Boolean, the way it works is like this. If I have one cube right here, I'm going to make it a little smaller. This way, and scale it a little bit. That. And if I want to, right, get a little flatter. In my subtool menu here, I can, let's say, insert in another cube, like this, right? So this cube, this is a new one I just inserted in. It's below this one, right? Up here, I'm going to enable live Boolean. Nothing happens, but you see these icons right here? These are your Boolean operations. By default, it's in the union operation. So if I click on this one, it's going to be the subtract. So if I hit Shift F, I can see that cube. That's the wireframe mode. And if I hit Shift F again, I turn it off and you guys can see what it's doing, right? Like it is cutting this out. ZBrush is using this cube to cut out of that one as if it's like a knife. So that's essentially the essence of Boolean, of live Boolean, right? So this is a very, very quick way for us to kind of quickly concept 3D pieces, right? So very good for sort of hard surfacey thing. So I'm gonna just kind of play around with this here. I'm gonna maybe something like, I kind of like that. So I'm gonna keep it there. I'm gonna insert in, let's say, another cube, boop, like that. Move it forward, scale it down. And I don't know what I'm making exactly. Maybe it's some sort of sci-fi gas canister. I don't know. And in ZBrush, by the way, if you hold down Shift and rotate, it will snap every 5 degrees. So you can rotate, fail there, hold down Shift, 5 degree, let go, move it in. And again, I have to change this from union to subtraction. See that? Subtract that out. I'm going to move it away from the bevel a little and just get that guy in there, get that bevel in there. Okay. Then I'm just going to keep doing this, and then let's do it. Another one here. Insert cube, right? Maybe this guy, move it down here. And you can use things like the knife tools and things like that in addition to help you shape this a little bit faster. So let's say I want to indent a shape. So I have to see it, push that in. That's the shape I'm getting, right? But if I use the knife, if I hold down Control and Shift, then click on this and use the knife curve and cut like that. See how it updates the shape for me because that cube is now being cut by the knife tool. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna move it out just a little bit. Let's do something like that. I don't really know what I'm making, but it's very fun to kind of experiment, right? So there is that guy, and then additionally we can make some, I'm going to switch it up and use maybe some circle. Actually, I'm going to do one more of the cube here, I believe. I'm going to do one more, yeah. So let's do it over here. Union, from subtract to union, right? Same deal there. Knife tool. Oops. I'm going to make sure this is parallel with that just for aesthetic purposes. All right, there you go. We'll cut there, and maybe I'll do one down here as well. I don't know. Something like that. All right. And the thing about this is the more you do it, the funner it gets, and then you can't stop making updates, right? Change this guy there. Maybe I want to make it something like this. Move it up a little. Cut it this way, maybe. Shift F so I can see my handiwork. I'm going to mirror it. The plugin, subtool master. Oops, sorry. The Z axis, I believe. Z axis. There you go. All right. I don't know what I'm making, but it's pretty cool. So the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add in maybe some holes or something right here, or maybe like a bolt holes maybe. So in order to do that, I'm going to insert in a cylinder, right? I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Hold down Shift, move it out of the way. And you know what? Before I do that, I think I'm gonna mirror this guy as well. So let's plug in, mirror. Okay. Yeah, I want that chamfer on both sides. And maybe this guy as well. All right, so for the cylinder here, just gonna push this bad boy in. And for the cylinder, what I can do is I can kind of scale this up so that to make it look a little more interesting, because if I just do this, right, see how it just kind of a hole in there, which is fine too, but I would like for, let's say, a tapering effect where the hole in the like the lip is bigger than the bottom, so it's kind of like a skew, not a skew, but like a tapering effect, right? So to do that, I'm just gonna turn this back on so I can see it. With the cylinder selected, right, I'm gonna hit BZM, and this is Zbrush modeling modeler kit, right? So what I'm gonna do with this is, if I hover over, it will light up, it will highlight the edge like this, and or face and or vertice. So I'm going to highlight over the edge, right click, and then I can delete, and then I will do edge loop complete. So I'm just going to go in and get rid of all of these edge loops. Right, so this is ZBrush modeling tool that's kind of equivalent to how Maya does with modeling, sort of the box modeling effect. If I go over everything it does, it'll be kind of long, and to be honest, I don't know what all of it does, but I do know that it is context based on your mouse based on the position of your cursor. If you hover over a face, right, like this, and right click, it will pop up an action. So this is the action, this is the target, and this is the I guess more like the more actions, and this is the modifiers. So if you hover over a face, the default action is QMesh, and the target is a single polygon. So what that means is QMesh is similar to extrude. So if I hover this, it says QMesh A poly, right? Left click and hold and drag it out. It extrudes a poly out like that, right? Super duper neat. Which would be kind of cool for what we're doing too, maybe. We'll see. So that is QMesh, right? The other thing we can do with this is polygon. So QMesh by default can only do one at a time because we select a single polygon. If we do, let's say, all polygons, this is going to be atrocious, but it just basically make a shell. It just extrude it, right? So instead of doing that, what we want to do, but let's say, what if we want to QMesh these two guys together like this? By default, Zbrush will do it for you, but you will see that it's kind of like fairly effective, but in my opinion, it's not really that effective. Sorry, it's kind of counterintuitive, but at some point it's going to start breaking. I just want to be able to QMesh two at the same time. I don't want to be stitching and dragging like that. So what I want to do is I hover over this face here and then click on poly group, right? A single poly. If I click on this, see how it changes color? That means now these two guys are the same poly group. If I want this third guy to be the same, I can click. If I want this third guy to be of a different poly group, because see how they are the same? If I click once, and then with the left mouse button held down, if I just tap Alt, it will cycle through colors, and that means I have now assigned a different poly group to that guy. Okay. I'm going to undo that, and I just want two. And it looked like I have accidentally left one more poly loop there, so I just delete that guy. Two. So that will make it a different poly group. So what I want to do instead, though, is this cube right now is now comprised of the loop and then one face and two face, or not one and two face, but two sides, right? And if we go down to poly groups, and then if we just click groups by normal, boop, see how it just changes, automatically changes the poly groups for us based on the way, based on where the faces are pointing toward, or at least the normals of the face is pointing toward. So the normals of this face is pointing toward. That way, that little red handle there, that shows us where the face is pointing, right? So in Zbrush, if the face is, if there's a difference of more than, I guess 90 degrees, I think you can change that somewhere. Yeah, max angle right here, max angle tolerance 45. So if it's less than 45, it's just gonna look at it as if it's the same poly group. If it's more than that, it's gonna make it a different poly group. So with that, what I can do, I can go in here, do scale polygroup all, and I can scale this in and out, right? And instead of mesh center, I'm going to do, let's do polygon center. There you go. All right, so what that let us do is when we push this in here, and let's change this back from union to subtraction. See how the outer hole is larger than the inner hole? And that creates a really, really nice effect when we are talking about like hard surface. Just that subtle difference in size creates a really, really nice effect. Now, one thing though that I'm noticing is when I make this hole is you guys see this faceting is happening. So that faceting is happening because our cylinder is too low polygon, right? So we get these ugly faceting. We don't really want that. So what we're going to do with the piece selected here, go down to Geometry, Dynamic Subdiv, and turn Dynamic Subdiv on. See how it's softened it out, right? And smooth subdivision, we can turn it to 3. It'll be even smoother, but that's not very nice, right? We're getting this sort of scalloping effect, and that is because it's just becomes smooth like a sea creature of sort. So what we want to do is go into Crease and then click on Crease. That will crease the edges and make our edges really sharp while the curves very smooth, right? So that's kind of what we want. And then I'm just gonna mirror this guy over as well. Z plugin mirror, okay, on the other side there. So we have this guy. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is if we have two different parts. So I don't know what this is, but let's say I want to create, I don't know, a sort of handles for this guy, right? So I'm going to append in another cube here. Oh, not append, sorry, insert in a cube. And let's say the handle is like right here. Forgive my extraordinary 3D modeling skill here. Right, something like that maybe. And what I want is for this to be a handle, I kind of want to cut a hole in here, right? So I'm going to add in, I'm just going to duplicate this one actually. Move it down a little and make it like that so I can cut off a hole in the handle, right? That makes sense. So however, when I click this, see how it's cutting through everything? I hope this is making sense to you guys, right? It's cutting, I only want it to cut through the handle and not through the body down here as well. So this is when organization comes in, okay? So at the very top of our subtool, and I'm gonna expand the visible count a little bit here, we have this guy, which is like the body. So I'm gonna rename this body, right? Just for clarity purposes. Anything that's below the body is kind of it's children, right? So if I want to have two separate parts that act independently of each other, so so this guy isn't cutting through both this guy and that guy, what I can do is for the body piece, I'm going to click on this little arrow right there. So that means anything that's below this is its children. Fair enough. This is my handle piece. I'm going to rename this to handle. Now I can do the same thing to the handle. So if I click this little arrow right here, boom, right? And now I can switch this from union back to subtraction. See how the handle gets cut out by this piece, by this guy, but not the body. I hope you guys are seeing that, right? So these little arrows kind of separate out and tell Zbrush to look at, basically tell Zbrush to think of it like this. Hey, anything that's before this arrow is this guy's children, right? But anything below this arrow is this guy's children. And this guy, they don't interact with each other, okay? I hope that makes sense. All right. So I've successfully made a little handle there. I can go in and, modify this, make it a little more badass, a little more sci-fi with more cuts, more whatever. But I think you guys can kind of get the gist of it from this guy over here. So Because of that, I'm not going to do it because the video will get kind of long. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to kind of finalize these booleans, right? Because currently they are live boolean. Live boolean means if I move them, they update, they get updated, right? And we want to no longer have to update these guys. We want to call them done, right? We don't want to update them anymore. So what we can do down here in Boolean, in the subtool menu, right? We can just click make Boolean mesh. But before we do, remember these little, oops, sorry. These guys has dynamic subdivision on to make them nice and smooth, to make this hole nice and smooth, right? So next to the make Boolean mesh, there's this little button. It is called void. Give me the tooltip. It says right there. It says right here for some reason. It doesn't appear next to my cursor. It says allow dynamic subdiv. So you have to turn that on. Okay. Then click make Boolean mesh. Boop. It's thinking. Didn't happen for some reason. Can I do it again? Or unless it did it. No, it didn't. Not sure why I didn't do it. Okay, I did it. This okay. It took a while to think, and then it made two. It made one and two. So I'm just gonna delete this guy here. I don't need two. Less confusing too. Yeah. There you go. So once it's done, it has the Boolean mesh made. So see now we only have one and two pieces, right? And all the pieces that we used to cut the Boolean out of is gone. Doesn't look really nice, does it, though? So for the purpose of this class, which is 3D for concept, what we can do is we can just dynamesh this guy at a really high resolution. So by default, my dynamesh resolution is 128. If I click it, looks like that. Not really nice. If I increase it to, let's say, maybe not that high. Let's do 500. Dynamesh. It's going to take a while there. It's finished. I know you kind of can't tell, but it's finished. And there is my Dynamesh, right? So what Dynamesh allows us to do is now you can go in here, turn on symmetry, maybe not that way. Use trim dynamic or whatever you want, and add in super duper nice edge damage, maybe a little bit of scratches here and there. Without having to worry about topology, because again, we are doing concept work, okay? Sort of just worrying about the high poly. Maybe do some a little some destroying action here and there. And you can combine this with the alpha, creating your own alpha lesson and maybe make some sort of pock marking metal alpha or something like that and really go to town with this and sort of create really, really nice detail now that you have the sort of the primary shape done, right? So I'm not gonna, again, this is just a tutorial, so I'm not gonna do too much, but you can see now how we can start to get into the granular sculpting stage and start sculpting nice detail, right? I'm going to undo a bunch of this because I need to get back to the issue at hand, which is Z-remeshing. All right, so I undid the Dynamesh, but as you guys can see, just crank the resolution up and then Dynamesh. For those of you who are following using the regular UI, Dynamesh is under Geometry. Close that crease. Dynamesh, same menu, right? Right there. Resolution and Dynamesh. Now, another thing we can do is instead of Dynameshing, we can try to, in ZRemesher, we can turn on Detect Edges, okay? And then click ZRemesher. See how nice that looks? Now, one thing, however, is this thing is symmetrical, but we don't have symmetry on. So make sure you turn that off. Hit X, turn symmetry on, but not that way. So change your symmetry from X to Z, right? Then run ZRemesher again. There you go. Now it's symmetrical. And we are missing a couple things here. Like here, we don't have crease, so let's just BZM, right click, crease, edge, just boom, boom, crease it up, right? And I'm noticing there's a couple of missing creases here and there, so we can go in and fix it by hand to kind of get some nice result there. This is not really nice, but so I'm actually kind of disappointed in how it solved that right there. If we Control D a couple times and see that it's really nice, and it got really nice topology, right? So we can use this to do sort of more like game or production ready work where topology is maybe is more desirable. So you can go in here and kind of do the same thing we were doing earlier. Again, I'm disappointed that it didn't keep that edge. Go in, do the same thing, trim dynamic, collapse this edge, add in some edge wear, things like that, right? So that is live Boolean, right? And with a little bit of creativity and a lot of patience, live Boolean is really fun to use, and it is really sort of creatively freeing, right? Because you don't really have to worry about how to approach like bevels, things like that. Like if you were say using Maya, right, and then bevel just doesn't work when the shape gets a bit too complex. This you don't have to really worry about that as much. And again, the class we're in, we're not kind of in the business, we're just in the business of making 3D concepts, so we don't have to worry about topology too much. There will be another class where we talk about how we can get this ready for, like, let's say games or things like that where high poly count is not really acceptable. But again, using ZRemesher with detect edges get us pretty close there, right? It's 9,000. It could be a lot lower for this, but we can try and do half. Keep going there, and you'll see it keeps and keep crease as well. And now we're really low now, right? So we lose a lot of detail there. So there's a couple of things we probably will have to go in and fix by hand. Like for example, maybe hand retoke that part to kind of get the crease flowing, to get the edge flow a little better. But yeah, otherwise that is let me see, actually let me try this. Another thing we can do is let's try to increase here. Let's do crease PG, right? And then in ZRemesher, keep crease, detect edge, and then turn adapt on. Let's see what we get. That's a lot better. Kept those creases. Missing this guy right here. Go and add it back. Boom. Add it back. Oops. Right there. So that's a lot better. Yeah. So there's a couple of different options we can use to make this work for us. But overall, I think I'm very pleased with how this is with the tool in ZBrush and sort of how easy it is to use too. And yeah, so hopefully that was helpful, and thanks for watching.